So it would be silly to have a belt. Do you have a belt, Max? You do have a belt? Good boy. I don't have one. So I got a speaker wire today. Now, what's that got to do with kids' time? Well, let me tell you. Just let me tell you what it has to do with. Jesus gave me the idea for the speaker wire. He did. So, no, listen. See this song we just sang? You're my all in all, and worthy is your name, and it's kind of good words, and it sounds good, and it's really emotional, and it's a great song, good music, all that stuff. But even at your age, you ask questions like, well, what can I do about somebody or something? And what the Bible and God teaches us is that answer is always Jesus. So let's say you got a test coming up, okay? And you say, if you were still in school, okay? I know it's summer. But you got a test coming up, and you're like, how am I going to get it? How am I going to make a good grade? Well, Jesus would say, study. Study. Right. You can pray. And Jesus would say, well, let's study. And let's clear our mind. So you see, no matter what it is, when you got something going on in your life, you need help with something. You go to mom and dad, they're going to tell you, hey, you know what? Jesus is the answer. Now let's figure out how he's the answer. I know, they're crazy out there. So I want, on the count of three, I need you to ask a question. Who's teaching us today? All right, you ready? You're going to ask that question. 1, 2, 3.
Nobody.
You must be on staff.
Nobody.
Nobody? Who'd you say? Miss Mary is. Whoop. This one? Oh, I do. Can I have your shirt?
No.
Beach hunk. It says beach hunk. No, Mary. Somebody in that group needs Ritalin, but I'm not sure it's a kid. Old Testament today. Y'all like Old Testament? It's not yours. It is Old Testament, but it's not yours story. It's Isaiah. It's still a good book. I think we're going to keep it. That's got some good stuff in it. Specifically, Isaiah 58. Isaiah 58, if you were here Wednesday night, okay, we had, look, I'm still doing it. It's just habit. They're not really falling down today, I promise. If you were here Wednesday night, we had great discussion, really intense. Enough so that I had multiple conversations after that were really deep, really, really deep. We really want to know. And I'm going to just say the word. What we're really struggling with, I'm not going to pretend that I know the answer, okay? Here's what we're struggling with. That we have a flesh that did not get saved. Oops. And we have a spirit that did get saved. And we're walking together in your body. If you're a Christian, that's what you are. You're an unsaved piece of flesh that's dying, and you're a saved spirit that's living forever. And there lies the conflict. So I'm really conflicted. So that's hard to teach, other than just like that, okay? But then it brings up all kinds of things. Well, how do I do the right things? How can my flesh do the right things if I'm dead? You know, and how it's never going to want to. And there it is. That's the word, the want to. The want to. We're going to look at Isaiah chapter 58. We're going to read some, I'm going to talk some, then read some and talk a little more. And here's the missing piece. Where'd Corey go? Oh, there she is. Here's the missing piece. Motive. I believe, and this is key for today, I believe God cares more about why we do what we do than what we do. Now let that sink in for just a minute, because it's a hard concept for somebody who's grown up having to act a particular way or having to change the way they act based on what they say they believe. I believe God cares more about why we do what we do than just what we do. And that will help us resolve some of the conflict. Because the Spirit inside of us will put in a new why. For example, plenty of good deeds get done all over the planet. Good stuff, humanitarian stuff. Houses get built, people get fed, all good stuff, okay? The difference is the why. We never want anyone to look at what you're doing, ever. Never. You never want to say, look what I did, because I'm a Christian. That's you. That's still you. No matter how spiritual you try to fling that, here's why I do, because I'm a Christian. So you started it with, here's what I do. The why is what's more important. Because just like you can do good things with the wrong motive and be lost, you can actually do bad things with the good motive and still be saved. That's math. And what does that mean? And why does it mean anything? And I think it resides in Isaiah chapter 58. See, Isaiah 58 is, I don't want to just do religious works, trying to impress, whether it's myself or you or God or anybody else. In essence, he's saying, well, let's look real quick. Let's look at, I think it's like the first 2 or 3. We'll read a little bit. Shout aloud. So this is God telling Isaiah, shout it aloud, do not hold back, raise your voice like a trumpet, declare to my people their rebellion, and to the descendants of Jacob their sins. Keep going. For day after day they seek me out. They seem eager to know my ways, as if they were a nation that does what is right and has not forsaken the commands of its God. As if. Write that, as if. They ask me for just decisions and seem eager for God to come near them. Keep going. Why have we fasted, they say, and you've not seen it? Why have we humbled ourselves and you've not noticed? Yet on the day of your fasting, God says, you do as you please and exploit all your workers. One more, I think. Your fasting ends in quarreling and strife and in striking each other with wicked fists. You cannot fast as you do today and expect your voice to be heard on high. Hold on. So I've heard this sermon. I heard quite a few sermons on fasting. A guy named, I think Jeremiah something, wrote a whole book on fasting. It's based right on here. Because God's getting ready to ask a question in a minute. Is this not the fast that I have called? And it becomes about fasting. Now, we did a fast as a church. And if you ask Rick Good, I get ideas. And I get really pumped up about those ideas, and I go for it. All right? I don't really stop and think. Right? Some of you already know that. That's fine. It's okay. And so but in my defense, I believe at that time, our church needed to hear about fasting. So we did. We called out fasting. We made it about fasting. And it was so cool because we all fasted. And for 28 days, all we talked about was fasting. I specifically remember sitting on Paul and Brenda's lanai for breakfast, and they were eating breakfast because they had not been here when we started the fast. And they ate in front of me. And it was all our conversation was about, oh, you can't have this. Oh, you can't have that. And Paul is really good. He takes a big old bite at the same time as he goes, oh my gosh, this is so good. But I'm being a good preacher at that point and just visiting, and I got to stay. But that's what it was. It was just all about the fasting. So that's all we talked about. It was the fasting. How hard is it to fast? It's really hard to fast. I can't wait till the fast is over. When the fast is over, I get to eat what I want to eat. I've given it up for 28 days. Gosh, I should never have done that. And it's just over and over and over. It's about the fasting. How close I am to God. How much closer I'm going to get to God because I'm fasting. And what's really cool is this whole nation's doing this. And God says, there you are. And what did you notice in there? Your fasting ends in quarrels and throwing of wicked fists. You know what happens when you go without food for a long, long time? You get mad. You get mad. I was mad. I was so mad last night that I ate gluten-free macaroni and cheese with frozen chicken. So mad because I hadn't eaten all day. It wasn't anybody's fault. I was just that you get grumpy, right? Sherry Ann calls me Mr. Grumpy Gills. And I go, I wouldn't be grumpy if you made me something to eat. Right? So that's how you get. Anybody else get mad when they get hungry? Okay. Quit nudging him. Of course he does. It's right there in the Bible. And when all you do is fast, or when all you do is anything for the sake of it, that's all you're going to get out of it. Especially when it comes to fasting. I'm just so upset. I know I'm edgy. I'm sorry. It's because of this fast. I can just see the nation of Israel saying that. Just going through it. And God would say, well, no, duh. All you're doing is missing some meals. And it wasn't even, and you know, while you're fasting, you need to seek me. He didn't even tell them that. He said, you went for the fast for the wrong reason. So should they have started that fast so that they could get closer to God? No, this is where you answer. Should they have started the fast so that they could get closer to God? Absolutely not. How does a Christian get closer to a God that lives inside of them? Anybody? But that's what we think. I'm going to fast, and I'm just going to, you know what, I'm going to get closer to God. We kind of talked about this in Sunday school. You know, you were as far away from God as you could get the day before you said, I do to you. I want you, I accept you. And boom, you couldn't get any closer. Now, you spend the rest of your life not trying to get away. See, you drug your flesh into a spirit world that says perfection. And now your flesh is going to fight for the rest of your days to pull away from that. Pull away from that. You want to fast to get away from something? Don't make any sense. You're as far away as you can get. You're as close as you're going to get. So why would I fast? Why would I do anything? See, he used fast, but I believe it for you and I, because the Holy Spirit lives inside of us, it's anything. Why are you sitting here? Why? It's Sunday? Why? Well, my parents taught me on Sunday you get up and you go to church. Why? You don't know. If you don't know the answer to why are you sitting right here, you shouldn't be sitting right here. If you don't know the answer to why do you give 10%, we talked about that last week. If you don't know why you give a tithe, well, the Bible told me I should. You shouldn't give 10% because it means nothing. Because what happens is you do all these things, and then you go to Him and you're like, I expect you to hear me, God. I expect you to hear me. I've been doing all this stuff. I've been right. I've prayed. I've helped the poor. I've done all this stuff. I've been there. I went to church. I volunteer. I volunteer 30 hours a week. I do all this. I should expect some things. See, when our motives is where I think God would really like us to focus on. Why? So I've kind of committed myself, and I've done this before, and I drift away from it. I'll do it, and then I quit. Why? Why am I doing? Why am I here? Why am I doing this? Why tomorrow? What am I doing that for? And every single day, why? And if the answer is not because I believe 100% in my heart that God would have me, do it. And that's the only reason. If that's not my primary way, I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it. Because you cannot go about your day doing what you think God wants you to do and then expect God to listen to you. You cannot go about your day just being all you can be and doing I don't care if they're good things, bad things, whatever things they are, and then expect God to pat you on the back. Because I think God spends more time looking at you from the inside. Okay, so we're not talking about God looking down, because we know God looks down and he just sees his son. So I'm talking about this internal thing. And Jesus, the Holy Spirit, whichever one, God looking in you and going, listen, don't go there. Don't go away from me. Okay? I'm trying to hold you here. That's the struggle. I'm trying to keep you in me. Why? So that we can look like him? Why? Is it so that we can behave right? So that we can keep the commandments? So we can do whatever? No. Why? Because he loves us. And that's pure. And the only way for you to understand it is to stay there. And the only way for you to give it to anybody else is for you to be in it. I want to feel the love of God, so I'm going to love you. Does that make sense? Please don't say yes, because it doesn't. I love God so much that I automatically love you. That makes sense. Then my motive for loving you can only be him. There's no way I'm going to love you because you're pigs. My flesh does not love you. My spirit loves you. And my spirit doesn't love your flesh either. My spirit loves your spirit. And I get to ignore the flesh because my motives. He would say, why are you even doing this fast? What, you're doing it and you're just fighting. Have you ever noticed that in Kentucky, now our trip, if I walked with Sherry Ann to church, because we live on the property, but if I were to walk with her, do you realize how many arguments we could get in between the house and here? Well, when we lived up the north, it's like a bad word, up the north. Anybody else up the north too? Yeah. You ever had an argument on your way to church? Anybody with your spouse? Yeah, absolutely. Totally. And it seems to be that's the main time. I don't know if it was because I was, or that the guys are at work and on Sunday you're together and you really didn't know how much you could argue in one day until you got together. But you're driving. But then as soon as you pull up into church, pop out. Somebody going to meet you at the door because you got to drop your kids off. At the kids area. Hey, how's it going? It's good. Absolutely fine. Praise God. Hallelujah. I'm glad to be here. Glad to be here. God's so good. He's really been blessing my life. Hallelujah. Isn't that kind of how you live? Yeah. See, that's just sucky motives. That's all it is. Because when you try to just do the religious thing, you will paint that face on. You will try to let everybody know that it's good. You will try to let everybody know that there's nothing wrong in your life. You will try to let everybody know that God answers all your prayers, that God does everything for you. You'll let them know. You'll try to let them know that when that's your motive. But you see, you'll never even worry about that when your primary motive is just simply following. You won't even think about it. God would say your motives would become pure. And then it's never about the action at all. You never say the phrase, I'm trying to do good. I'm trying to love others. I'm trying to do what God would want me to do. No. When your motive is to just follow him, you automatically do those things. And you know it because you feel it. But anytime you stick something else in there, man, it's just a quick way for the enemy to pop in. It's just a quick way for him to make you realize how hungry you are and let you snap at somebody. We don't argue at our house. We don't. I don't know if it's because we've learned it, or maybe I hope when I look back on my life, I'm like, you know what? I really did follow Christ when I was loving her. I hope I look back and that's what it is. That I'm following his guide in how I treat her. And I hope when I look back, I can say that's right. Because I can't set out to treat her right. Bad motive. I have to set out to love God and let Him show me how to treat her. If we even say a loud word to each other, somebody will jump into our room and go, "Hey, are y'all getting divorced?" Is that what this sounds like? Because we don't know. We don't know. Yeah, absolutely not. But that's it. That's it. See, the devil can creep in when your motives are wrong. And things go awry when your motives are wrong. That's why I believe in the church you find so many of the same worldly problems, like divorce, like strife, like divisiveness. When your motives are wrong, the devil has a way in there. And because he can disrupt these bad motives. But listen, he can't disrupt the God that lives inside of you. He is untouchable. See, we're to become godly. That's true. Become godly by allowing Him to come out of us. And that told Corey, I don't know how that looks, because I say the flesh is dead and it's ugly, and yet I'm going to allow God to come out of me. Like I've got control. I'm not going to pretend I understand what that looks like. But I think the theology is good. So I'm going to let you figure it out on your own. Does that make sense? Man, it gets quiet when you start talking about why you do what you do. See, I just, when I see Christians and all they are is a bumper sticker or a Jesus fish or a cross hanging on the wall or around their neck, all good things as long as we have the character behind it. But if that's all we are, I'm only going to have, I got to have a cross. I went through a phase in my life that we had to have a cross in every room. In our house up north, you got to have a cross. Why? I just think we should. It makes us look more Christian. Really, I went through that, and I'm like, now if I were today looking back, and I'd ask that question, I'd be like, heck, I don't know. I wasn't told to put a cross in every room. I just thought it would be cool. I wanted everybody to come in so that I could say, we have a cross in every room. And then we did this Jesus picture. We went to Emmaus. I don't know if you've ever been to Emmaus, but it's like a spiritual retreat. And they have a picture of Jesus, and it's like their picture of Jesus. And I signed on to that cult too. And I wanted to, so we had a cross and a picture of Jesus in every single room. You know how weird is to go to the bathroom, there's a picture of Jesus and a cross there? But we had one. Got to have one everywhere. Why? I don't know. I just did it. It made me feel more godly. That's it. I don't know. I wasn't any more godly. Can I tell you, I grew up. I literally think I was in the nursery probably the week I was born. I was? There you go. I was so I've been in church 44-something years. How many? That's right, 44-something. That's how many years I've been in church. And one of those, not one day made me more godly. And I can remember a time I went thinking it did. Or I went showing that I was godly. You ever done that? You go to church because you show you were godly? How many of y'all are proud that you got some lost friends that know you don't miss church? Okay, you're not going to raise your hands anymore today. I know. I'll quit asking. Yeah, because you are. They are. We're proud of that. We're proud of that. No. Oh, no, I know I can't invite you to go on the boat today. You're going to church, right? You're right. And then you're going to be like, yes, I am. Absolutely, I am. I really want to go to the boat. Yeah, go at noon. Yeah. I only go to the Baptist church because they get out before the Methodists, so they can go to the Denny's before they do, or whatever. Think about that, though. I know you don't want to. You really don't want to. And some of you will think for just a few minutes, and you'll be like, oh, no, mine are pure. I'm good. Absolutely good. But I promise you, probably 80% of our motives are wrong. 80% of the stuff we do is probably wrong. Because you and I occupy this body, which is flesh. And man, I wish that I had the ability to allow God to live 100% out of me. I wish. 1 John, we just looked at this morning. If I did, I wouldn't sin. I wouldn't. And 1 John says that if you do, Don't worry, there's somebody up there who's continually atoning for it. If, it says, if you sin. Wow. So that means all the times that I'm willfully doing it. And my motive for the stuff that I am doing is probably just as evil. Back then, God's bringing people through wildernesses and deserts, and He's proven Himself day in and day out. He's providing manna for their food and water from places that comes out of rocks, and He's splitting up the Red Sea. I mean, He's doing all this stuff for these people, and then He's still having to go to them and go, hello, you're really supposed to do this stuff just because you love me. Not for any other reason. Not because you're afraid somebody might see you not do it. Not because you're afraid somebody will see you do it. Oh, that's bad. Am I not supposed to talk about sin? That was rhetorical. Yeah. We shouldn't not do things because we don't want people to see, and we shouldn't do things because we do want people to see. Motive. How do I fall in love with Jesus? Well, probably the first step is to quit doing all the crap you're doing. Maybe quit being who you are. Stop and think, am I been doing this simply because I was told to? Am I doing this simply because I think it's right? Am I doing this because I don't want anybody to think that I don't love God? Am I doing this because I read in the Bible somewhere that I'm not supposed to? Is that the reason? I pray not. The Bible's a backup. You've already been told what to do. You've already been told how to be. You've already been told how to act, what to say. The Bible backs that up. Don't go searching for if you can or if you can't. If you got to do that, probably shouldn't. Let's look at what else, because he does have a little good news. Maybe y'all can smile before you leave. I don't know. What's the next verse? You remember what I read last? 5, 4, 3, 2. Is this the kind of fast I have chosen? Only a day for people to humble themselves? Is it only for bowing one's head like a reed and for lying in sackcloth and ashes? Or is this a fast? I got to fast. You got to worship a certain way. You know, this can bring all kinds of stuff out if you're not real careful. You ever walked into a church and the music was too loud? Can't worship here, it's too loud. You ever walked into a church and it's too soft? I did that. I can't worship here. You ever walked into a church and it's too liturgical? I've done that. Can't worship here. You ever walked in anywhere and it didn't fit what you think it ought to fit, so you couldn't do what you think you ought to do? Is it supposed to be about what it looks like? God's sitting here asking. Is it because you can dress in sackcloth and ashes so you can walk around and people can go, I know who you are. Man, they dress good. You don't see none of their body. I mean, it's from their neck. I was reading this about a group of a family that's on TV, so this is where it's from. And I know that's who they are because that's what they do. They wear this, and if they wear this, that must mean they're like this and believe this. See? And so I listened to the motive behind why they did it. And they said this, because we don't want others to look at us. The girl said that. The girl said, I'm doing this because I don't want guys to have to look and sin because of my body. Why don't you just dress that way because God told you to? Why can't that be enough? I will submit because God probably didn't tell her to. Somebody else probably did. That's hard. That's hard. I know that's hard. Some of you don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. But it's true. If we would start just doing and standing on it because that's what God told me to do, and that's enough for me. If you could do that, God's presence inside of you would come out of people and they would see it. They would know it. They would understand it. And we kind of said that this morning too. You got to be careful though. I didn't just give you a weapon to use. You can't walk out and go, God told me to. Because everybody knows when you're lying. But when God actually tells you to, and you obey Him and do it, He does it because He loves you and because you're going to have a better life for it. You are going to have a better life for it. He will make your existence on this planet a little better. A little better. In a body that's dead and dying and not saved. See the conflict? Somebody said, Some of you are thinking, I got to go throw my crosses away. Don't do that. Don't do that. They're still okay. They're still okay. Let's just read some more. Because I think he speaks better than I do. Is not this the kind of fasting I have chosen? That's rhetorical. To loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke. Is it not to share your food with the hungry, to provide the poor wanderer with shelter, when you see the naked to clothe them, and to not turn away from your own flesh and blood? Is that not it? Now hold that back. Go back 7. Is that not what it is? So what is it if it's not all the other things? What is it? How does it show? See, I think he's wanting you to look back and say, okay, so why did I do it? And what's the result of it? So for them, the fast resulted in quarrels, fist fights, a bunch of people wearing bad clothes, because in a fast in their day, they didn't bathe, they didn't do any of that stuff, okay? That's why he changed it a little bit later, and he says, listen, when you fast, fix your hair, you moron. Put a little perfume on so that people aren't walk by going, what's wrong with you? So that you're not going, I'm fasting, I'm so hungry. He says, spruce it up. See, that's what they're doing. They're just like, I'm fasting for God. I'm just fasting for God. That's all it resulted in. He said, would it not be this? Would this not be the fast? You know, you want to fast, you're going to give of yourself to others. You want to know if you follow God or not? Just ask the people that know you. Just ask them. Just ask the people that know your friends. They'll tell you. And you'll hear words like, oh, they're good people. Good people. Give you the shirt off their back. Help you. Anytime I need help, I just pick up the phone, and they're always there. That's what you're going to hear? Or are you going to hear, man, I don't know much about that God they serve, but I think they love Him. I think there's something really different about them. Yeah, I've got other friends that I can call, and they'll always be there just like that, but that one's different. That one's doing, there's something different there. I don't know what it is. You know why they don't know what it is, right? Because they don't know who He is. They don't know who He is because He's the one controlling you. But if you're the one controlling you, they know exactly who you are. You're just good people. And then look, this is where, this verse I read a long time ago, and it really affected me when I was early in the church. So if anyone's ever asked this question of me, well, why isn't Sean more involved, with the church here, or when the church does this or church does that? The last part of verse 7 really hit home to me probably about 8 years ago, because I was so involved in church and the church work, the ministry, that I was not in tune at my house for just a moment. And I read that verse. Do not turn away from your own flesh and blood. Now, this is going to speak to some people different probably, but to me it spoke, listen, do what you're supposed to do, but don't you dare neglect what you've been given for the sake of doing stuff for God. So you can go home and go, well, I've been serving, I've been ministering. You got to understand church work. Yeah. I mean, you got to, come on now. It's more important. This church stuff's more important. Helping people's more important. Look, listen. I made a vow. I would never go to any of my kids and say, no, honey, I can't be there. I got stuff to do for the church. Because listen, I got news for you. Anybody can stand right here and preach, but nobody can be the dad at a softball game. No, nobody can be this or that. Now, I have missed a couple of soccer games, and Gracie reminds me every time it happens. But it's their fault for having soccer tournaments on Sunday morning. I understand. But they know. That's why, if you're ever with me during the day, or if I'm up here, ask Johnette. My phone will ring probably 20 times. Of that 20, 5 of them at any particular time is either Gracie or one of the other kids. I never just decline. I always answer it. But about the 3rd time Gracie calls, I'm like, seriously, I haven't moved. But they know, if I want him, I'm calling him. If I want him, I'm going to ask. And the person that's sitting with me that we're having a really deep conversation with, they can get this look of, am I not more important right now? Do I have to tell you? Do you really need to hear that? It's going to hurt. Because you're not. Because a 7-year-old that wants to know where the Cheerios are, or a 12-year-old that wants to know where the milk is, it's more important. All that stuff, and not to turn away from your own flesh and blood. That's what the fast is all about. That's how you know. That's how you know that you're following Christ, because you're doing the stuff that Christ does. And you're looking back and you're like, oh, yeah, that's why. You're not looking back and going, man, I really missed out because I was doing this, or I was doing that. I was doing. God is more concerned about why you do what you do than what you do. I promise. And there is my resolution to the conflict. Because our flesh will do things that our spirit tells us to do. And from the outside sometimes, it doesn't feel right to somebody else's flesh. But that's okay. As long as that's together. As long as it's together. My flesh, my spirit. I wish you could feel it in myself. I think you do. That's where I want to walk. I boasted of that this week. You're probably not supposed to boast. But I did. I boasted that I live in the conflict. Love the conflict of myself and the Spirit. I never want to sit back and go, whew, got this Christian thing whooped. I got myself straightened out, man. God got me fixed. I never want to sit back in that rocking chair because I'll fall. That leg will fall out just like that. I constantly want to go, I do not want to do this. I do not want to do what he's telling me to do. I want to do what I want to do, but I know I shouldn't. Which one shall I choose? And moment by moment, I choose odd ones. Because I'm never fixed. Never, ever fixed. Let's go. Stand with me. May you look at these words in Isaiah and never, ever, ever forget why you're doing what you're doing. I can promise you one thing. When you do that, you won't have to justify anything you do. Check that. Because number one, you won't care. Number two, the spirits inside of every one of us will be together. That's cool. Check out Isaiah. Read it. Take that and just digest some more of Isaiah 58 this week. We'll tear into it a little bit more Wednesday night. Go a little bit deeper. Don't be scared. It's going to hurt. It probably will hurt. It hurts me every time we do it. So I hope it does. We're back in a retreat center this Wednesday, right? Johnette? Yeah. So we're back in a retreat center Wednesday night. So come for me. Listen, I'm going to say real fast. I don't normally pat people on the head or the butt or back or wherever you pat people. But I just want to tell you, Mary has been filling in, cooking on Wednesday night for the past 2 weeks. Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Where'd she go? Oh, she's with kids now. So, yeah, now you're clapping and she can't hear it. Isn't that sad? Oh, Debbie Mills. Debbie Mills, where's she at? I know she has. There she is. Debbie lost Roger on Friday morning. Roger's now dancing with Jesus. Roger knew exactly where he was going before he ever left this place, and he went with a bang. One final act of obedience, right, Debbie? Can I tell him? Debbie made Roger promise, don't die in the bed. Roger got up and got in his chair and died. You got to obey. Men, just obey all the way through. Let that be a living legacy for us guys. Do what your wives tell you. Do what you tell. What's she waving at me for? Tonight? Oh, Sean Taylor's graduation party, crawfish and shrimp boil. Yeah, y'all are all invited. Forgot. In the retreat center, back in the back, 5:30 tonight. If you've never been to a crawfish or shrimp boil, you need to enjoy one of those. But it's Sean Taylor's graduation, photo booth, fun times with props. It's going to be a great party, so just come and celebrate him. He was the drummer that, if we played drums, would have been playing drums. He's got prettier hair than everybody. Y'all know who I'm talking about? Okay, so that's the one. That's the one. Y'all come and celebrate his graduation. Oh, we decided. His birthday's Saturday, so we're going to, I just told him, we're going to have one party. It's graduation birthday, so we're going to happy birthday at the graduation party, and we're going to forget his birthday happens next week. He turns 18. Who wants to be part of that anyway, right? Yeah. So cool. So come support him. Yeah, he's our quiet one, our reserved one, probably the smartest one of all of us, so just come and share, but come have some shrimp and crawfish. Good stuff? Oh, 3 of you. Awesome. Thanks. Come back next week. That'd be great. Can't wait to do that again. Who wants to pray for us? Mr. Satterley, would you pray? Send us out of here.